This video shows how we can compare results from different projection scenarios. And so the example in this case focuses on the projection variant that we've just produced, which was a natural change projection. And we're going to compare that projection to the earlier projection, which was essentially a replication of the National Records of Scotland 2016 based projection for Edinburgh and East Dunbartonshire. So when I produced my natural change projection, I specified that all of the output files would be saved within the relevant output folder. And we can now see that there are indeed a whole set of files that end with the letters NC to indicate the natural change projection. So it's very easy for me at this stage to do things such as go to reports for the natural change projection, to open that file and then do some analysis. So I can, for example, quickly run the Flying Pyramids program, perhaps just focusing on Edinburgh, and I can look at how that population structure varies under a natural change projection. If you remember back to some of the early results, you can see we now have a much higher proportion at the older ages than perhaps we did in the projection for Edinburgh that included migration. But those kinds of comparisons are quite hard to do if we're just looking at the Flying Pyramid for this particular natural change projection. We might be interested in comparing more than one projection at once, and Pop Group includes some very neat functionality to do that. So the way to compare projections is to first of all go into the Pop Group folder, and if we scroll down you can find a file called pgcompare. So we can open this projection, this file. The first thing we need to do is specify where our output folder is. So we're telling Pop Group where should I be looking for outputs from my projection. So I need to double click on this to specify the path, and it's the Edinburgh East Dunbartonshire 2016 output folder that contains all of the output files for the projections I wish to compare. So once I've specified where these projections are, I can click on refresh list of workbooks. So asking Pop Group to see how many projections are there in this particular output folder, and we should expect to see two, which are my natural change projection and the principal projection that NRS produced and that we've replicated in Pop Group. So now at this stage I can then click on Get Summary Workbook and Make Charts. And what Pop Group is doing now is it's pulling in data from different projections, in this case two different projections, the natural change projection and the NRS principal projection, so that we can compare output in each of the two different projections and see the effect of different assumptions on our population projections. So the first thing I might be interested in looking at is the population across all ages. I can look at particular age groups on the tabs down here at the bottom. But if I look at all ages, we can see a strong difference between the two projections. So in particular, we can see that, I think this is for both Edinburgh and East Dunbartonshire combined, that under a natural change projection, we would see a decline in population over the projection period. Whereas for the principal projection, we can see an increase in the population between 2016 and 2041. So we can see here that migration is crucial to giving the increase in population that is projected across Edinburgh and East Dunbartonshire combined. And without that effect of migration, we would actually see a decline in the total population. So we can look at this data for particular age groups. We can look at components of change such as births and deaths. And similarly, we can look at migration too. And if we look at migration, we can see that in the natural change projection, there is no effect of of migration. So this is sum of net migration to the UK. We can, of course, also look at overseas migration too. So the pot group compare function is a really useful file in terms of comparing two different projections. Here I was showing comparing projections for Edinburgh and East and Bartonshire combined. You might wish to look at specific population groups. You might wish to look at Edinburgh, and you can do that through the menu tab in the PG compare file and altering your selection of population groups. And now I'm looking at Edinburgh. And again, I can look at all ages and see the results for Edinburgh itself. So a really useful feature for comparing population projections from different scenarios. And clearly here I just have two scenarios, but one could easily specify and bring in more different scenarios to compare in this way.